What up, Titans? Titan up here. Welcome to my reaction to Mongols' invasions of Vietnam, 1258 to 1288 documentary by Kings and Generals. Just for the titles video, they invaded Vietnam multiple times because they have invasions is plural. So clearly they've done it many times. I honestly don't know a single thing about like the Mongols at all. But I would love to. I love learning about wars in general. So it'd be awesome to learn about new battles and new wars and everything like that. And I'm honestly very excited because Kings and Generals make some really good videos. And I know it's been a while since I reacted to Kings and Generals, but the next videos I have coming up for reactions are Historian Armchair, the Paratrooper. Would it make a difference in World War II if they weren't there? Also, Geography Iraq. Geography Now, Iraq will be also coming up here soon. It's been a while since I did a Geography Now video. But yeah, so you have a little idea of what's going to be coming up here soon in the next couple of days. Anyway, let's get right into this reaction. Let's go! Here we go. Kings and Generals presents.
While Kublai Khan's invasions of Japan are his most famous foreign ventures, his dreams of conquest were not restricted to the land of the rising sun. In Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Myanmar and Indonesia were all subject to the wrath of the Great Khan. But there as well, Mongol forces failed to achieve the great successes they had seen earlier in the century.
Is that
in this
Total
video,
War game?
We shall discuss an invasion as fascinating as that against Japan, the Mongol invasion of Vietnam. Shout out to The Ridge for sponsoring this video. The Ridge raises the standard of everyday things like backpacks, chargers and wallets into sleek tools for better living. Their flagship product, the Ridge Wallet, was launched on Kickstarter in 2013 and now sits in the front pockets of over 500,000 men and women.
Really?
We carry so
500,000?
much pointless stuff in our leather bifolds that they often resemble suitcases, while the Ridge helps you carry less, but always have what you need. It comes in titanium, carbon fiber, and over a dozen styles, ensuring that there is a good fit for everyone.
They're probably
the
expensive.
Ridge has 30,000 5-star reviews, a lifetime warranty, and free returns. Get 10% off Ridge products today
there you go.
with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/KNG.
There you go.
And use the code KNG. Link in the description.
Go do it, guys. Save 10% off.
13th century Vietnam was divided into two states. Dai Viet in the north, known as An Nam to the Chinese, and Champa in the south. Dai Viet was the first to encounter Mongol armies in 1258.
Oh yeah, this is Total War.
In an effort to open a southern front against the Song dynasty, Kublai conquered the kingdom of Dali in Yunnan, and his general Yuri Enkidu, son of the famous Sukhothai, led an army into Dai Viet.
Civilization.
With fighting limited to the mainly level uplands and the Red River, Mongol cavalry easily overcame Vietnamese forces. Dai Viet's new king in 1258 sought to avoid further conflict by sending ambassadors, hostages and tribute. While successful, Yuri Enkidu found that Vietnam's climate and the tropical disease wreaked havoc on men and horses used to more moderate climates.
Jeez. Oh my god, look how
Not long
huge
after,
it is.
Champa also agreed to pay tribute to the Great Khan, and relations were cordial over the following years.
Is the Mongols that blue area?
Kublai began asking for both monarchs to submit to him in person and confirm their allegiance, which both put off in favor of continued tribute missions.
They got a lot of land.
By 1279, the fall of the Song dynasty now brought the Yuan Empire to the borders of Vietnam, making their refusal less acceptable, as was their housing of fleeing Song officials.
Getting a lot more territory.
Of greater interest to Kublai, though, was the economic power of Champa. Positioned on valuable maritime trade routes, Kublai saw Champa as key to controlling Southeast Asian trade. With the failure of its king, Indravarman VI, to submit to Kublai in person in 1280, and the imprisonment of Yuan envoys in 1282, Kublai had his pretext for war. Striking at Champa first had the added benefit of putting Dai Viet in a vice grip between Yuan China and an occupied Champa, and would hopefully bring it to heel as well.
Jeez, they're gonna have a big army with all that territory.
In December 1282, Sogatu, a hero of the final war against the Song dynasty and governor of Fujian, departed with 5,000 men drawn from former Song territory aboard 100 transport ships, arriving near the Cham capital of Vijaya in February 1283.
Okay.
After brief resistance, Vijaya fell to Sogatu, who found that King Indravarman and Prince Harijit had fled into the mountains.
They pushed him out.
A month was wasted in fruitless negotiation with Cham envoys, and in March, Sogatu took his army to attack Indravarman, but was ambushed and driven back with heavy losses. Retreating back to the coast where he made landfall, he cleared land to plant rice to feed his men, sent envoys to the Khmer Empire, who were detained, and sent messages to the Yuan court for aid. Initially, the court's response was slow, still planning for a third invasion of Japan, and it was not until March 1284 when an army of 20,000 was dispatched to aid Sogatu, joining him in his march to take Thuat Chau and Hoa Chau.
20,000. So what, they got over like 23,000 by now?
August 1284, the Yuan court had received maps showing the land routes through Davyet to Champa, and it was declared that Kublai's son, Tokhon, would lead a force overland to assist Sogatu. Davyet was ordered to help supply this army, but they refused, and came to the conclusion that this was a pretext for a Yuan conquest of Davyet. Under Prince Chen Hungdao, they began preparing their armies. In January 1285, Prince Tokhon led his army in 6 columns over the border from Yunnan into Vietnam. The forces sent against Tokhon were quickly overcome, and captured ships allowed them to cross the Phu Luong River in February. Sogatu was meanwhile marching north, the two commanders undertaking a great pincer movement on Dai Viet. Prince Hungdao divided his forces to try and prevent Sogatu from linking up with Tokhon, but Sogatu overwhelmed them, capturing 400 renegade Song officials.
2 big armies
outside. By the time he linked up with Tokhon, the prince had constructed a full river fleet, placed under the command of Omar, and together undertook a full offensive against Dai Viet, Omar driving its king out to sea, while Tokhon and Sogatu captured the capital, Hanoi.
I'm about to say, they had to crush them with that big of an army.
With Hanoi's seizure, the Yuan experienced their final success of this campaign. In Hanoi, their forces and supply lines were overextended, running low on food, while heat and disease took their toll, and suffered a defeat at Hamtu Pass in June, where an important commander was killed by poisoned arrows.
Poisoned arrows?
Tokhon, seeing their position as untenable, decided to call a full retreat back to Yuan territory. So swiftly was this done that Tokhon somehow failed to inform Sogatu of the retreat, who suddenly realized he was left isolated deep in enemy territory. Hurriedly he forced his way north, but the Vietnamese harried him the entire way until at Su Ming on the Yuan border, his army was surrounded and Sogatu was killed in the fighting.
Oh, man,
this was a disastrous end to the campaign, and Kublai was so furious he refused to allow Tokhon back to the capital. By 1286, Kublai had finally given up on invading Japan, but frustrated by failures, and his mind increasingly clouded by drink and depression, he ordered a third invasion of Dai Viet. Special care was taken for this invasion. Supply ships were ordered from all along the southern Chinese coast to ferry troops and provide the food necessary for the great army being assembled. 70,000 Mongol, Jurchen and northern Chinese, 6,000 troops from Yunnan, 1,000 former Song soldiers, and 17,000 Loi people from the island of Hainan, for a total of 94,000 men, not including the crews of the 500 warships and transports. Tokhon was placed in overall command again, his final chance to redeem himself before his aging father.
How do they do it? They win?
The Yuan army set out, splitting into 2 major forces. 18,000 were taken by Omar and Fan Yi aboard ships sailing along the coast, while Tokhon took the main army overland. A third force of 6,000 travelled west of the main army to act as a diversionary force. In December, the main army crossed the border in 2 columns and defeated several Dai Viet forces, marching to Van Kiep on the Bac Dang River to await the arrival of Omar's fleet, who arrived after fighting off a Vietnamese navy.
Jeez.
Despite early success, neither force had brought much food, expecting to be supplied by the transport fleet. Tog Hon waited for the supply fleet until the end of January 1288, but unbeknownst to him, much of the supply fleet was blown off course by a storm, and the rest were attacked by the Vietnamese navy. With food supplies running low, Tog Hon marched on to Hanoi, hoping to resupply there. The city fell without opposition in February, but to their horror, they found there wasn't a grain of rice left within. The defenders had stripped it in their flight.
That's not good.
The increasingly desperate Yuan forces went to great effort to gather food, until learning of the disaster which befell the supply fleet. Tog Hon ordered the army back to stockades they had constructed at Van Kiep, and by the end of March, his men on the verge of starvation, he ordered a general retreat back to China.
Wow.
With the Yuan forces reaching wit's end, the Vietnamese attacked. Their route north was harried by continual ambushes and the destruction of roads and bridges to hamper their movements. Tog Hon grew so worried he boarded a warship for the return. On April 9, 1288, Omar's fleet was sailing past the mouth of the Bac Dang River when a group of Vietnamese ships, commanded by Prince Hung Dao, sailed out to meet him at high tide. Eager for some sort of victory, Omar took a portion of the fleet and attacked, the Vietnamese quickly routing before the Yuan warships. Yet as they proceeded upriver after the Vietnamese fleet, a trap was sprung. Wooden stakes placed along the river bottom impaled the larger Yuan vessels and tore apart their hulls as the tide receded.
Oh my god.
With the Yuan ships immobilized, the Vietnamese turned about and attacked. Helpless, many Yuan soldiers jumped into the river, drowning or being picked off by the arrows of Dai Viet, and Omar was captured. Another fleet commander, Fan Yi, attempted to rescue Omar, but his vessels were surrounded and boarded, with Fan Yi himself killed in the fighting.
Oh my.
400 ships were captured by day's end.
400?
And the victory was followed up a few days later, when the supply fleet finally arrived, turned into the Bac Dang River, and was itself captured.
That's a great victory for the Vietnamese.
Learned of the rest of the fleet's destruction,
he
abandoned trying to return via warship, and, unable to take the main roads due to traps and patrols, rode hard through side routes all the way back into China. Most of the Great Army was left to be destroyed in the wilderness. 1288 proved to be a total fiasco for the Yuan. Only a few years after the destruction of the Great Armada off the shores of Kyushu, another fleet and army were destroyed with little to show for it. Tog Hon was sent into political exile after both disastrous campaigns. While Bac Dang was a masterfully executed victory by Prince Hung Dao, Dai Viet and Champa had suffered terribly over both campaigns, and both kingdoms, to avoid another invasion, began sending tribute and recognized Kublai's authority. Today, Bac Dang is a highly celebrated episode in Vietnam's history. The tactics and strategy of Hung Dao were studied by the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. Such lessons were lost on Kublai, and he attempted more invasions, which we're going to cover soon, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button.
Alright, that's the end of the video. I'm thinking about the next video, Mongols invasions of Japan. It takes place from 1274 and 1281. And I learned a little bit about this in my World Civs class, or Civilization class, and wasn't there like storms every time they tried to cross the sea to Japan, and they would just wipe out like most of their ships, and like I can't remember, they had like a certain name for the storm. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, smash that like button, like, comment, subscribe. For more reaction videos, go follow my Twitter and Instagram down in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next reaction video.